Well, good morning and welcome to the special review session.
Yes, good morning. This is a special review session of the City Planning Commission of May 22nd, 2019. The time is 10:05 a.m. There are two items on our agenda. The first is a referral of a zoning text amendment and then also a pre-hearing review of a non-ULURP rule change. Our POPS program manager, Stella Kim, will be presenting both.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. As Ryan introduced, I am Stella Kim, the Program Manager for Privately Owned Public Spaces with the Department of City Planning. And today I'm here to present a few items related to POPs, a targeted text amendment related to signage and amenities in POPs, and a departmental rule on signage as a pre-hearing item. So most of you are probably already pretty familiar with POPs or may have been briefed back in October here on the signage rule, but I'll refresh your memories with a quick overview on POPs before diving in. So POPs is an acronym for Privately Owned Public Spaces. They are a collection of indoor and outdoor spaces on private property in the densest areas of the city, intended for public use and enjoyment. They're owned and maintained by property owners, primarily in exchange for bonus floor area or other waivers, and were required as part of special permits or special districts. Today we have over 550 POPs at over 350 buildings across the city, which is equivalent to 9 Bryant Parks, 66 football fields, or half of Governor's Island, to put it into perspective. So they add a lot more open space to our to the overall open space network throughout the city. So this started as a zoning incentive tool first introduced in the 1961 zoning resolution in the form of these, what you see as mostly barren plazas and arcades with minimal standards. Since then, though, the regulations governing POPs have evolved tremendously. There have been many text amendments that introduce entirely new types of indoor and outdoor spaces, phased out some, and refined design standards over time. One thing to know is that the types of POPs vary, so each one is essentially unique and is required to be provided by the owner and according to the regulations under which it was built under or any city approvals. So over time, the department continues to make an effort to enhance its design standards to make sure that all POPs are the best they can be, or high quality, useful, and inviting to the public. The last major update to these standards came before the Commission in 2007 and 2009. So one of the key elements in the last update was related to signage, which is key in making sure these spaces are known and then therefore can be used by the public. Signage became required at plazas beginning in 1975. When done well, they really help the public know that these spaces are there for their use and enjoyment. And when done poorly or are absent, they have the opposite effect and sometimes raise enforcement challenges. The many spaces created under the previous standards were not required to have signs, leaving many of these spaces unidentified. But this all changed in 2017 when the city adopted a local law that requires public space signage at all POPs. So, and as you can see that there's quite a variation of existing signage across the city as well. And so, we're excited that now POPs will all have updated signage and signage across all of them. And we really took this opportunity to see what a fresh new start could be for the identity of POPs and the signage. And as I mentioned back in October, we plan to launch this design competition for a new logo. It was launched in January and open through May and received over 600 submissions from nearly 60 countries. It was a huge success. And over a 2-week period, we heard from 17,000 members of the public on their favorite logo and had a one-day pop-up here outside the commission room displaying all the submissions. And today we are unveiling the winner to you, which is Have a Seat by Emma Reed. This was just announced 2 days ago on Monday. Director Lago chose this logo of the 3 awardees. These awardees were selected by a panel and the public vote. So we're incredibly excited about this logo, and as you can see, it emphasizes the use of seating, which has always been a really important amenity to the department for POPs. And so as part of this effort, we want to allow all POPs to have seating. The universe of plazas that weren't required to have signs, the ones built prior to '75, aren't technically allowed to have seating in them. The 1961 plaza standards were, again, very minimal and actually didn't permit the basic plaza amenities that we know and expect to see in plazas today. And the same goes for arcades. So while we're at it, we propose to amend our text to unlock this potential for all plazas and arcades to be more useful, inviting, and to allow seating in them. So before you is the department proposes a zoning text amendment that will essentially allow us to update the logo, ensure all POPs have the required signage, and to allow all plazas and arcades where you can't have movable tables and chairs currently to allow for them. Generally, POPs bonuses are available in medium to high density districts and high-density residential districts across the city. These bonus regulations are incorporated into the zoning text also of various special districts, as you see on the screen here. So that's where they'll be referred. And so that's it for the first item.
Okay, so on the second item, a little bit of background here. I am now going to change hats, and we are now conducting a New York City Department of City Planning City Administrative Procedures Act public hearing, and I'm wearing...
Actually, we wanted to do a pre-hearing review session.
Oh, and then turn to the public.
So,
I'm sorry, I apologize.
My advice is that on the referral of the text amendment, that we have any questions from the commission, and then we refer it out.
Oh, separately from the second, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
So then, questions from the commission on the proposed text amendment. Yes, Commissioner Levin.
I do have maybe it's just a technical question on the text, which is belied by this image here, which does say open to the public. But it looks like in the text, in many places, you're crossing out to public and leaving the wording just open.
Yes, the open to the public will be part of the graphic file that people will download with the new logo. So it will still be on the signs, definitely.
But the text won't require that it be, but the text pieces are just about the signage. It's elsewhere in the text that we require that they be open.
Yeah,
Okay.
the file will include the open
Okay,
to
I'm
public.
reassured. Thank you.
What we were trying to do with this is not to have the actual design of the logo be in the zoning text, because it can change over time, but this file will have to be downloaded.
No, that part I understand. It's I got the idea that the sign only had to say open.
No.
Which wasn't going to work for me. So I'm glad you agree. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Burney.
The text says that plazas that previously prohibited movable seating are now permitted to have it. Was there any consideration of actually requiring it?
Requiring it is an interesting idea. I think it comes down to how much of a financial cost we'd want to put on these property owners. They are grandfathered technically under the original plaza regulations that their plaza was built pursuant to. So they're not legally obligated at this moment to provide seating and actually aren't allowed to. So we're just unlocking that potential for them at this point.
Oh, I see. So sort of going back and retroactively requiring it might be a bridge too far, I suppose.
The one thing I'll note is that as the owners of these buildings with POPs are seeking to retrofit them as part of an upgrade of a building, they need to come to us, and we use those opportunities to bring them closer to compliance. But we thought it would be too much of a burden to retroactively require everyone to meet today's standards.
Yeah, and we're encouraged by a lot of the plaza owners do come and get their plazas redesigned. At any given time, the department is reviewing like 50 different POPs applications, so.
Yeah, right. I think people are beginning to understand that successful public space is a benefit for everybody, owners and public alike, so it's good.
Commissioner Cirillo.
So thank you. And I know that there are, at least in Midtown East, there have been several owners who have gone through the process of modifying their POPs to make them more engaging to the public over time. And I think that permitting tables and chairs to exist in these legally is really very helpful, especially in the dense area of Midtown East, where we're always looking for opportunities for people to enjoy the environment. I guess my question, and it could be in here, I'm sort of flipping through the pages, but is there, with respect to the signage, is there a date for compliance? Does everyone have to then convert the existing signs to the new signs? If so, what is the time frame involved in that? And what is the notification process for owners to know that this is occurring so that they avoid any potential violation of the effective date of this or effective date of enforcement?
Yeah, so that I was going to jump to in a second on the signage rule, but the owners with existing approved signs that say open to the public and the hours will have 2 years to submit a new signage plan to the department. Those without any sign, to the passerby, it's otherwise unknown to the public, they only have 6 months from the rule adoption. The timeframes are set by the signage rule, which I will jump to next as a pre-hearing item.
Which is part of the CAPA process.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and I guess, okay, I think everybody's addressed.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
think the notification question came up when I briefed the commission in October.
Yes.
And we have our best, database of current owners and also their managing agents. So we will send courtesy letters to everyone to notify of this this requirement. So we will do our due diligence on our end as a department in notifying the property owners.
Sure, that's great. And I also could say that at least in areas, there are potentially other options for notification to go out, and we should discuss those. That sort of more direct contact might be helpful for areas where you have organizations that are community-based, that have relationships in the neighborhoods, which, even if it's duplicative, it could be helpful.
I hear you volunteering a certain bid.
I am. I guess the question that I was going to ask, in looking at the sign again, and I know this is sort of the framework. This one says open 24 hours. Are we changing the time of the plaza openings, or is whatever the existing? I know many of them are open 24 hours, but I know we also have circumstances or considerations for having limited hours to some degree. So is that now the standard, or whatever the standard is for that POP, that has to be provided on the sign?
Yes, it's the latter.
Okay, great.
Yeah, this is just a mock-up sign, but it is true that most outdoor spaces are 24 hours, limited universe that have some kind of closing.
But I did see in the text, it indicates that the tables, there is an opportunity to, we'll say, remove the tables and chairs from the plaza for whatever reasons would be necessary to maintain the plaza and all of those things during the 9 to 7 a.m.
Overnight,
period.
yeah, to secure them, because there's, always issues of theft and whatnot. Yeah.
No, I think that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. I just wanted to key in on process. The referral would be to the impacted community boards?
We are going to do it to the affected community boards, the borough boards, and the borough presidents.
Okay. So assuming there is a support, when would this take effect?
It will come back after 45 days. We're suggesting a 45-day referral.
Okay.
And certainly our sense, based on conversations, is strong support for this. The entire POPs initiative creating Stella's position came out of a piece of council legislation. Other questions? Okay, then we will, as I said, refer this to the affected community boards, and borough presidents for 45 days. So now, I think does that end the special review session?
And I'll do the pre-hearing item really
Okay.
quickly. I mean, it's all related to what I just spoke about. So just as a quick overview, and again, this was presented before the commission as a briefing in October, but in conjunction with this text amendment, the department has proposed to amend its rules to provide specifications on signage that is required by a local law that was adopted in 2017 and amended that requires property owners to post signs at all POPs, regardless of the zoning. And so the goal with our rule is to make sure that all POPs are easily identifiable with clear, visible, and legible signage. So our rule goes into detail about what the signage should look like, what it should include, and it sets, most importantly, a review process by the department to review signage plans and sets a time frame for owners to submit those plans and install them by. So again, as Commissioner Cirillo asked about the time frame for that, is for POPs with existing signs, they have 2 years to submit updated signage plans to us, and POPs without signs will have 6 months from the rule adoption to submit those signs. And that is it. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Questions from the commission? Okay, so Ryan.
Yeah. Okay, so now that concludes the special review session of May 22nd, 2019, and the time is 10:22.
Okay, so my name tag has been removed because, as I said, I am no longer acting as chair of the commission, but rather as director of the department. And this is a public hearing on the proposed modifications to our rules. I'm going to be joined again by Stella Kim and also by Dominic and Sweeney for any questions during the public hearing. And these are proposed modifications of the department's rules, which are found in Title 62 of the Rules of the City of New York, pursuant to Section 1043 of the City Charter. The modifications would, as Stella just noted, add Chapter 11 to the rules of the department, which would provide property owners with guidance and instructions to implement the signage rules for Local Law 116, the 2017 law that Stella just described, as amended by Local Law 250 of 2017. So to clarify for the members of the audience, this is a listening session for the Department of City Planning, and anyone who would like to speak on this matter, I would ask them to come forward at this time. Okay, I will then note that the record for any additional comments remains open for written comments until 5 p.m. today, and with that, the hearing on the matter is closed. And I get my name back. So now, good morning and welcome to a regular meeting of the City Planning Commission, a public meeting, and Madam Secretary, let's get going.
Okay. Good morning. This is a City Planning Commission public meeting held at NYC City Planning Commission Hearing Room, Lower Concourse, 120 Broadway. Today is May 22nd, 2019. As a courtesy during the proceedings, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. All speakers should fill out a speaker's card. In addition, we ask that those providing testimony please identify yourself, limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and speak clearly into the microphone. I will now call the roll. Chair Lago.
Here.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Burney.
Here.
Commissioner Capelli.
Here.
Commissioner Cirillo.
Here.
Commissioner Delauss.
Here.
Commissioner Dweck.
Here.
Commissioner Edie.
Here.
Commissioner Knight. Commissioner Levin.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz. Commissioner Rampershet.
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, May 8, 2019. Madam Chair.
On the minutes, all in favor? Opposed? Minutes are approved.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 1. Borough of Queens, calendar number 1, CD6 C180399ZMQ, in the matter of an application for a zoning map and zoning for a zoning map amendment concerning 76 Drive and Austin Street rezoning. For a favorable report on calendar number 1, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Delauss.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampachet.
Recused.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 1. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 2, CD2 N190354ZCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 631 Ocean Terrace for adoption on calendar number 2. Chair Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Delauss.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampachet.
Yes.
Calendar number 2 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 3, CD3 N190228RCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 63 Linwood Road and 35 Pleasant Street for adoption on calendar number 3. Chair Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Delauss.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampachet.
Yes.
Calendar number 3 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 4, CD1 N190289ZCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 273 Lighthouse Avenue for adoption on calendar number 4. Chair Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Delauss.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz. Commissioner Rampachet.
Yes.
Calendar number 4 has been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 4. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 6, CD4, C190253HAM. A public hearing in the matter of an application for a UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned property concerning 201-207 7th Avenue.
We're going to have a 10-minute presentation by the applicant team comprised of Vianda Summers, Thomas Yu, Amy Gross, Reality Curry, Eli Uva, and Andrea Alexopoulos.
Good morning, Chair Largo, Vice Chair Knuckles, and City Planning Commissioners. My name is Vianda Simmons, and I'm the Director of the Manhattan Planning Division at HPD. And I'm joined by the development team, which includes my HPD colleague, Ehi Ua, who is the Deputy Director of the Affordable Neighborhood Cooperative Program, otherwise known as ANCP, and members of the development team, which includes Asian Americans for Equality and Amy Gross Architects. I'm very pleased to testify in support of this ULURP application for the disposition of city-owned land to facilitate the development of a mixed-use project located at 201-207 7th Avenue, located on Block 797, lots 81 through 83. The proposed development includes the new construction of a 9-story building with 26 cooperative homeownership units with ground floor retail and a rooftop terrace and a community room for the residents. This site is composed of 4 contiguous blocks, city-owned blocks containing 14 units on the corner of 7th Avenue and 22nd Street. The zoning district is R8A and with a C2-5 overlay. We are excited about the forward progression of this proposed project, which will allow 14 relocated residents to return to a new homeownership apartment development, and the remaining apartments will be marketed to the larger public. HPD and the development team met prior to certification on several occasions with Community Board 4 to present the project and also to solicit feedback. We were able to make several adjustments based on Community Board's requests, and we are here today to present the proposed project. This project is a long-awaited project. The TIL program has been in existence since the 1970s. And the ANCP program started in 2012, which will now allow the new residents to move forward with a homeownership unit. We appreciate your consideration of the ULIP application, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. Again, the land use actions include UDAP designation and project approval, and the disposition of city-owned land. The ANCP program provides low-interest loans, 1% loans, and tax benefits to rehabilitate housing for low to moderate income households by partnering with private lending institutions and other financing sources. Regulatory agreement terms and tax exemption terms and enforcement mortgage terms are 40 years. The unit sale price for returning tenants is $2,500 plus maintenance and fees. Thank you for your time, and I will now turn over the development discussion about the project to Afi Thomas Yu, who's co-executive director.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Thomas Yu. I'm the co-executive director of Asian Americans for Equality. Very briefly, we're a 45-year-old nonprofit that started out as a civil rights advocacy organization, and in the past 20 years have also taken on quite a number of affordable housing development. We also selected Amy Gross Architects as our design architect, mainly because of her stellar record in affordable housing and ability to maintain contextual design in the neighborhoods that she works in. A brief summary of the project. As you will see later in the design, it's a 9-story building that's designed to match the area of the surrounding neighborhood in Chelsea. We will have ground floor retail that's broken into small business units as a preference from the local community, and a residential lobby. There'll be 26 residential cooperative units ranging from studios to 3 bedrooms. There was a desire to have as much as possible in the small footprint, 2 to 3 bedrooms, which was something, a feature that the local community and the community board indicated to us. As you can see in the chart, there's the breakout of the units, and we have 5 tenants also returning. The resident amenities include a rooftop terrace, community room, and laundry room on the 8th floor. There'll be lobby garden space, and there's a bike room and package storage as well for the tenants. Some of those features are already mentioned here, but then the development is also handicap accessible and ADA compliant, and the buildings will be built towards the Enterprise Green Community standards. I'm going to introduce Amy Gross Architects. We'll go a little further into the design.
I want to thank you. It's good to see you all. This building was a particular challenge for our office in that, as you all know, there's a wonderful legacy of strong architecture in this area of Chelsea. And what we have chosen to do is to honor the massiveness of the mercantile architecture, the delicacy of the residential architecture, pardon me, and then clearly to bring the building into the future. What you see here is a watercolor rendering that was developed for the building to hopefully show you the delineation of the property. And then we have a color and materials board. If there is time, I can certainly walk you through that. The building has, as is typical to a lot of Chelsea, a 2-story base, a residential middle section, and then what we call a new skyline, which is that we took the small scale of the building and tried to give it more mass by a very articulated way that it meets the sky. Am I doing this right? Yeah, there we go. As you can see in the building elevations, the building to the top of the roof is 85 feet, and then we've extended the bulkheads parapets to bring it up to a total of 100 feet. As Thomas was saying earlier, the ground floor has retail space, and the top floor, at the seventh floor, has the community amenities. The building belies its size in that the lot is only 50 by 75. And though it is on the corner, the challenge was, as I was saying earlier, is to really give it the strength of architecture that this location deserves. And clearly, most importantly, is to address the program that the community needs. So what you see in yellow are 3 neighborhood-sized retail establishments, which wrap around from 7th Avenue to 22nd Street, and then access into a modest size, but appropriately sized lobby, which has a garden at its rear. And this residential lobby, as you can see, contains a very condensed scissor stair and elevator core. The intent is to also have cellar space. We're in the process of doing soils analysis, so we don't know exactly how much space will be allocated to the retail tenants, but the intent is to have below-grade space as well. And then as we move up to the typical lower floors, each floor of the building has 4 apartments. In this case, we have a 2-bedroom apartment on the corner straddled by 1-bedroom apartments and a studio. And as you can see from the furniture plans, all of the apartments meet the HPD design requirements, and I think have a real sense of commodiousness, and will have a significant amount of light due to the large windows and its orientation. As we move up to the floors above that, we have 2 floors that have 3-bedroom units on it, which you can see on the corner, and those are straddled by 2 studios to the south, and then a 1-bedroom apartment to the north. And the residential amenities that Thomas was referring to are congregated at the seventh floor, which has a 1,000 square foot green space, L-shaped, and from which is access from the laundry room and a large recreation room, as well as an expanded elevator lobby, which also becomes another gathering space, which is a double height space that is articulated on the outside of the building. And then as we move to the final floor, the 9th floor, you can see it's much smaller because we've basically run out of FAR. That has 2 apartments, a studio, and a 2-bedroom. So I thank you for this opportunity to present the building to you. I'm obviously happy to answer any questions, and I hope you have time to look at our boards and watercolor rendering. We brought the original with us. Thank you.
Is that the end of the team presentation?
That is.
Great. Then I'll open it up to questions. Commissioner Capelli.
What are the costs for people who are not returning tenants?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ehi Uwa, the Deputy Director for ANCP.
And also the income requirements.
Income requirements, yes. So the cost for the vacant units, we're setting the sale prices at 150% AMI, and that's based on the cost of the project. That sort of dictates the price. The income cap is 160% AMI.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Commissioner Burney.
Thank you for the presentation. I just want to commend the design. I think you accomplished what you set out to do. I think it's a really good job in terms of scale and proportion and materials. It's really good to see. I just wondered, in its review process, did HPD apply the active design guidelines? And I know there's limited opportunities, but for example, putting glazing in the scissor stair doors so that people can feel comfortable using them, perhaps enhancing
Thank you
the
for
finishes.
asking that. We actually did incorporate those guidelines, and because of the location of the, in that, as I said, that modest-sized elevator lobby, we've located the entry stairs right next to the elevator to, again, motivate people to use the stairs.
Oh, terrific, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Edie.
Hi. You had mentioned that based upon soils testing, you may be able to create a lower level, a basement or a cellar. If you do, what would you put down there and how would it change the programming above grade?
The intent is that the programming commissioner would not change up above. What it would do is give additional space available for the retail tenants, increasing income to the cooperative.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. The till tenants, the till units in the building were how many, 14 in total?
No, so there are currently 5 existing till tenants, but the current structure of the building has 14 units, but it's occupied by 5 till tenants.
Okay.
4 of which have been relocated, 1 is still there.
Okay. And they will ultimately all be
Returning.
returned?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is the acquisition cost for those tenants to reoccupy those units?
So for the existing till tenants, the cost of the units, it's $2,500. For tenants that may not be able to afford that, we have a rent-to-own model, whereas the rent they're paying during the construction period goes towards that purchase price, and at the end, they pay $250 to be able to buy their shares in the co-op.
Mm-hmm. So what happens when a till tenant, for whatever reason, their presence ends? They pass away, or they move, or what?
When they're a shareholder of the co-op? So this is an ownership program, so that tenant would be able to will that share to, a descendant, a child, anyone that they want to. It's their ownership property, so they're able to will it.
But they can't sell it on the outside market?
They can also sell it. The sales price would be capped to an appropriate AMI level based on a affordability index. They can sell it and they'll be able to realize profit from that.
Thank you.
I think it would be helpful to provide more information about the sales process and how we can get comfort that beyond 40 years there are mechanisms for retaining affordability.
Yeah. So to that point, thank you for that point. To that point, every HDFC cooperative that's created through the ANCP program, there is an incorporation document that limits the sales price of any unit to 165% AMI in perpetuity. In addition to that, there is that 40-year regulatory agreement that also caps what a person can sell their unit for.
Very helpful, thank you. Commissioner De La Hoz.
First, I just want to say I think the building looks really nice, Amy. I think it's really going to add to the texture of the community, and I really want to congratulate AFI on one being selected. Homeownership projects are a tough one, and it's great to see we haven't really seen all that many affordable homeownership projects, and I know 150% of AMI is probably higher than you would have liked, but given the fact that you have 5 returning families, you ultimately have to make the numbers work. I'm wondering what role AFI may have on an ongoing basis, if any, once the project converts.
We will be the property managing agent for a year after the project is placed into service as a requirement of the ANCP program. And afterwards, the tenants have the option to choose their own third-party manager or remain with us. That's open. And then we also intend through our small business CDFI, which provides micro loans to small businesses. Our intent is to also provide technical assistance, and if they need it, lower interest rate loans from our CDFI for those mom and pop businesses that we're targeting.
This is more of I guess, a program question, maybe for HPD. Have you all considered whether or not a year is the right term, the initial term for management for the sponsor? I've found that a slightly longer term is helpful for homeownership projects. 1 year is not actually very long, especially when you also have commercial spaces involved. And I would just ask that you maybe consider a slightly longer initial term, up to 3 years or 4.
Okay, thank you. I know what we do anticipate in most of our projects, working with developers such as AFI, is that over the course of the pre-development process, which takes about 2 years, and the construction process, which takes about another 2 years, over the course of that 5-year period, that those tenants would build a relationship and they would want to maintain that relationship with a property manager that is effective. But we will take that into consideration.
Commissioner Ramprasad.
I had a question in regards to the cellar. I know you mentioned that you're waiting on a further soil analysis. Isn't there an existing cellar there now?
Yes,
And
there
what
is.
is the exact concern or the reason that you can't, give us a program for the cellar quite yet?
One, I think it's just my nature as an architect is to be cautious. Secondly, we are located right near the MTA tunnel. We're directly adjacent to the tunnel. We're working with the MTA. We've already done a significant amount of due diligence. And until the building can really be vacated, we don't have all the definitive data.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Levin.
Returning to the issue of long-term affordability, I know that both the community board and the borough president have some suggestions for ways in which the standard HDFC programming package could be reinforced to ensure that there is some oversight and that these units do in fact remain affordable over time. CD4 has a large number of HDFCs, many of them having come out of the TIL program. And I think the experience there suggests that there are some HDFCs who, that have developed a sort of building-wide commitment to long-term affordability, recognize that these apartments are, in a sense, public assets in addition to being private assets. And then there are other HDFCs where that sort of mission commitment disappears over time, and there's relatively little enforcement by the city. So I think some of the suggestions that you've received from the community board and the borough president go to additional ways to reinforce the mission element here. And I'm wondering if HPD is taking a look at any of those suggestions for reinforcement here.
Yes, we definitely are taking every consideration under advisement and working with our legal team and also with, just every division in HPD to make sure that we're making the appropriate decisions to ensure affordability. That is our main mission as an agency and definitely as a program to make sure these home ownership opportunities that we're creating are actually for the long term. And to that point, I would mention that there are five specific ways that we are aiming to enforce affordability in all of our TIL buildings. The first one, as I mentioned, the incorporation documents that creates HDFCs that are supposed to be affordable in perpetuity. We've reinforced language in that to make sure that there is more of a stick at the end for violators of these policies. I think enforcement is the main issue, like things that are written down. It's easy to violate things that are written down if you know that they're not going to be enforced. So one of the main things as an agency we're aiming to do is reinforce that these are things that HDFCs need to abide by. Otherwise, there is a penalty, which could mean, the property is taken back by HPD, or that, there is an amount that is due upon, a violation of any of these regulatory requirements.
So there is a reversion possibility in the documents?
In the HDFC incorporation documents, if the HDFC does not follow these rules, there is language that does allow HPD to step in. I do want to mention that, we do have also the city subsidy amount that is going into the rehabilitation project, and that is buying the affordability. So in an event that HDFC does not meet the requirements and violates the regulatory agreement, those funds are due back to the agency. These are, multiple methods that we use to make sure that these HDFCs are following the rules.
Thank you.
I would note that I think that enforcement and reversion is more powerful than paying the amount of money, because given this location, it is fabulous that we're creating a low-income home ownership here. But I would think if ever there is a site that warrants a keen eye because of market forces, it would be this one. Commissioner De La Hoz.
I'm just wondering, I actually don't know why this hasn't occurred to me earlier. Has HPD put any language in regulatory agreements specifically for homeownership projects that precludes them from being used Is it Airbnb?
Thank you for that question. The specific Airbnb language is not in a regulatory agreement, but there is an owner occupancy requirement that any person who's purchasing these units is required to maintain that as their primary residence for at least 270 days a year. And this is enforced by the monitor and by the HDFC. They need to ensure that tenants are actually within, or I guess not tenants, shareholders are actually maintaining that residence as their primary residence. It's not meant to be a vacation home or something that they can rent out even for an extended period of time, and not less Airbnb.
Might be interesting to think about updating that language given current circumstances.
Yeah, we can definitely check to see.
Other questions? Well, thank you to the applicant team. We'll now turn to members of the public who have signed up to speak, beginning with Pamela Wolf, who will be followed by Betty McIntosh.
Good morning, commissioners. Excuse me. My name is Pamela Wolf. I have approximately 4 hats on this morning. I'm a member of the Chelsea Land Use Committee of CB4 for several years. I also live on 21st Street, about half a block away from this building, and have lived there since 1956. So I've seen a lot of history happen here. I'm also a member of an organization called the Council of Chelsea Block Associations, which is an 18-member organization that works toward betterment of our community in the Chelsea neighborhood. I'm also a member of a group called Save Chelsea, which has worked also pretty hard on this particular issue. I'm also representing my block association, which is the Chelsea West 200 Block Association. Having spent my entire adult life a few feet away from these properties, I wanted to give some personal view of the history as seen by somebody next door, basically. The buildings in the 1950s were vibrant and alive with tenants and very diverse population. There were also commercial spaces. There was a paint store. There was a bodega. And those were popular in the community. Over the years, through the next couple of decades, things went downhill pretty severely. The owner didn't pay his taxes. The city took over the buildings into receivership. And by the mid-'70s, they were in pretty tragic condition. They'd lost a lot of their architectural integrity. The cornice, which had been quite lovely for all 4 of the buildings, was removed. The front stoop on the 22nd Street side of the building was removed. The high front stoop. A lot of detail disappeared, along with a lot of the tenants. And at that point was when it went into the TIL program. Once established in the TIL program, it appeared not to be successful for whatever reason, and one by one and little by little, people left, disappeared from the building until there were only a few residents left, and the commercial spaces were empty, all but one. Over time, it just became an eyesore for the community and a major issue with safety, with rodents issues, major problems in the community. And the groups that I've mentioned came together to...
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the history.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Capelli.
How do you feel about this project?
I think this is the best thing that's happened. I think this is the best of all worlds. I am very happy with the results. I am hoping that that this affordable housing can really be confirmed as a permanently affordable housing. We look forward to welcoming those residents back into this property, and we welcome the opportunity to have real, honest-to-God commercial use in the ground floor, the 3 stores. We are hoping not ever to see a CVS come in, and Generally speaking, I'm very pleased, particularly with the architectural aspects. I think Amy Gross's company has done a beautiful job and worked very well with us, with the CB4.
Thank you. Let me just say that this is my first neighborhood. I was born there.
Really?
64 and a half years ago.
I got you beat.
On 20th Street, next to the police station, I believe it was 222.
Exactly, 222. The precinct is 224.
So that was my first house, my first place of abode.
First
Thank
residence. So you know something of what I speak.
I have very strong memories.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Deleuze.
Actually, I was going to ask the question about how she felt about the project, and I really appreciate you being here and providing the perspective of a number of decades, and quite honestly, doing it so succinctly, but I think painting the picture all the same about what this project represents today in terms of taking us back, so thank you. And also, thank you for all your service. I mean, I think 30 seconds of your time was just spent talking about all your volunteer activities.
I wish I could have avoided that and just have held up a sign or something, not to waste my seconds in front of this microphone, but thank you for the opportunity to speak further.
Very effective use of your seconds. Other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Betty McIntosh, followed by Joe Restuccia.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Betty McIntosh, co-chair of the Manhattan Community Board for Chelsea Land Use Committee. Community Board 4 is very excited that finally 4 extremely deteriorated buildings will be replaced by a handsome new building with 26 affordable units. We're very grateful for Corey Johnson's office for advocating the project, and I want to applaud the efforts of HPD and the sponsor Asian Americans for Equality. They successfully overcame major challenges for the project, which included unstable site conditions and difficult tenant relocations. Joe told me that the last tenant finally signed to leave yesterday. HPD had to craft a program with no previous models because the project shifted from rehabilitation to new construction and demolition and new construction. I will focus on building design. You've heard a lot about it already. We're very pleased that the architects team, Amy Gross Architects, had a series of meetings with Community Board 4 that allowed us to give input on the design of the building, both exterior and interior. They came up with a design for the new building that would have a definite presence and not be overwhelmed by nearby modern, higher buildings. Based on research of the neighborhood, mid-block loft buildings became the reference point. We discussed all aspects of the facade. The architect responded to our concerns and adjusted brick colors and accents. A corner setback in an earlier plan was eliminated because of our objections. The 7th floor is particularly well designed with thoughtful amenities. It has a laundry room, a recreation room, and access to a space for an indoor garden. We have requested that basic pavers and planters be included in the garden area so residents can get a head start on gardening. We asked that the project include 3-bedroom apartments. I think Amy mentioned that. In addition to proposed smaller apartments, that change was made. So now there are 2 3-bedroom apartments. We have recommended that the 3-bedroom apartments be on upper floors so that families will be close to the top floor amenities. It is possible this request can be accommodated. The building design has virtually been agreed on. However, there are some very serious program issues which have been touched on, which Joe Restuccia will speak about next.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you. Our next speaker is Joe Restuccia, who will be followed by Lizette Chaparro.
My name is Joe Restuccia. I'm the co-chair of the Housing, Health, and Human Services Committee at Community Board 4. And we worked very heavily on the design, and we're very happy with it. Since August 2017, the board has met with HPD and the development team on this project in the Speaker's office. However, at our meeting in February of 2019, we just assumed that there would be permanent affordability. We were blindsided and a little bit shocked. So first and foremost, we need this to be permanent affordability, and that needs to be both in the enforcement mortgage and the regulatory agreement. The fact that it's in the certificate of incorporation just doesn't make it. I personally, in my professional capacity, have developed over 500 units of HDFC co-op apartments, and the city is not enforcing the mechanisms, doesn't have the resources. You are right, Chair Lago. Of any location, this is our big concern, that it could not be permanently affordable. The Article 11 tax exemption is limited to 40 years. That's another issue, because affordability must be coupled with tax exemption, because the real estate taxes in this location are astronomical. We're working with the Speaker's office and HPD to figure out how we can do this to maybe have the regulatory agreement state that the owner must reapply for tax exemption extension. We have to put something in there to make sure we protect the affordability again. Broader income bands. We know this is very expensive, and we're very nervous about it because we only have basic estimates. It's going to be more expensive than we think. To that end, we are recommending use of the West Chelsea Affordable Housing Fund to help further subsidize this project, because the small lot is creating a very high per square foot cost based upon the large apartment sizes that the neighborhood needs. And the last thing is major for us, and that's resale restrictions. And we're very, very concerned, and we were shocked to hear from HPD that the resale restrictions, especially for the returning till tenants, if you purchase at $2,500 and the maximum resale price is $587 or $487, that's a windfall profit. We do not believe that is how we've done anything anywhere in our neighborhood, and we very much will continue to work with HPD and the City Council to make sure the resale restrictions for those units especially do not give windfall profits to tenants. It is absolutely inappropriate. We've worked too many years. I've worked with this project only since 1992. So it's a really serious matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Delauze.
Joe, as always, really appreciate you coming here, and given your expertise, I know that I, in particular, listen very intently to the policy recommendations which you're raising, which obviously go well beyond this project. I think this project raises them, but, I agree with you that, affordable home ownership is important, not just for the first family in the door, but for subsequent families that would like to, have some equity that they gain, but also ensure that that asset is something, that public asset, that public-private asset is something that can be available for generations to come. I would just, in addition to this forum, and I know Community Board 4 and you all are quite sophisticated, that I would just also recommend that, through ANHD, through Center for New York City Neighborhoods, the kind of policy recommendations that you're making about affordable homeownership are relevant for so many other projects. So I would ask you also to consider bringing them to other forums so that they can amplify your voice on this.
Certainly.
Other questions? Commissioner Dweck.
Were you saying that the the restrictions in the certificate of incorporation are not enforceable, or they're just not enforced?
They're not enforced, but also that process will take a very long time. The regulatory agreement is usually the mechanism where HPD enforces things very easily and quickly. That's where those kind of things live normally.
And a certificate of incorporation issue would have to go through the courts, or?
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I'll just note by thanking the community board members, your letter that you sent was so useful in laying out exactly the considerations, and the fact that you, in addition to having spent so much time, written such a compelling letter, took time out of your day to come, really speaks to your devotion to this public service that you're providing. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Lizette Chaparro.
Good morning, Chair Lago and Commissioners. My name is Lizette Chaparro, and I'm an urban planner for Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer. And I'm here to read her statement in support of permanently affordable housing in Manhattan. I'm happy to see that this site, after several decades, will finally provide affordable homes for New Yorkers. But I have always argued that when city-owned land is redeveloped, it needs to provide 100% permanently affordable housing. That is not what HPD has proposed. I understand that the homeownership component of this project presents specific challenges, but HPD can still work to make this project permanently affordable. There are a number of mechanisms to ensure the status of affordable HDFC co-ops, and I believe that HPD still needs to demonstrate that those mechanisms will be effective and as long-lasting as possible. The regulatory agreement and Article 11 tax exemption are currently set to end in 40 years. I believe both terms should be extended to the longest period possible. Some developers, for example, have agreed to 80-year terms, and Community Board 4 has requested that this project meet that standard. I agree with them. Without access to the tools that guarantee permanent affordability in rental developments, we need to push for the maximum length of affordability. In addition, the Articles of Incorporation for the HDFC must ensure that it remains affordable in perpetuity. For example, it should specify resale restrictions as an additional layer of affordability protection. The initial purchase and resale prices need to be set at the minimum level that can be afforded by households earning up to 160% AMI, which at over $150,000 for a household of 3 is already high. These units should be sold back to the HDFC, and unit sales must be managed by the HDFC, not the individual shareholders. This is key to preserving affordability. Future generations of lower-income New Yorkers need to have the opportunity to live in the co-ops that the city develops. And yet, neighborhoods across Manhattan, including Chelsea, have seen these affordable co-ops selling, in some cases, for as much as $1 million. To prevent this, HPD must extend the affordability of this and other future HDFC co-op projects, and the agreement be structured to ensure that the mission of providing housing for low-income New Yorkers remains the primary goal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Those are the only speakers who have signed up, but if anyone else would like to be heard, now would be the time. Then the public hearing is closed.
Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 7, CD5, C190273, ZSM. A public hearing in the matter of an application for the grant of a special permit concerning One Penn Plaza.
We are going to have a 10-minute team presentation by a team comprised of Barry Langer, Mike Zaborski, Bob Flahive, and Signe Nielsen. Oh, and I'll note that Commissioner Cirillo is recused from this item.
Good morning, Chair Lago and Commissioners. I am Barry Langer, Executive Vice President Development of Vornado. I'm joined today by Mike Zaborski, our architect at MDEAS, and Signe Nielsen of Matthews Nielsen Landscape Architects. We are excited to have this opportunity to present our project today. It's the culmination of 3 years of work with city planning staff and many stakeholders in the Penn District. Vornado has assembled over the last 3 decades 10 million square feet of space sitting around and above Penn Station. We are currently working on the redevelopment of the Farley Post Office into the Moynihan Train Hall on behalf of the state. And just last week, we joined the governor in announcing a new entrance to Penn Station at 33rd and 7th Avenue, something we originally suggested many, many years ago. That will be coupled with a complete redevelopment of the Penn Station concourse that LIR occupies, which we'll be doing by completely redeveloping our retail space, shrinking it to allow for the widening of that corridor. That retail space sits under One Penn Plaza, the subject of this application. Today we're talking about One Penn Plaza. It is a 57-story office tower developed by Harry Helmsley in 1972. It contains over 50,000 square feet of pop space. The existing conditions of this building are very low, dark storefronts, 1 story in height. The pop spaces were developed with very large bunker-like planters that prevent people from really getting up onto them. And with below-grade Penn Station, below-grade loading docks, most of these plazas are in fact elevated, creating a further barrier to access. What we're proposing to do is redevelop the bottom 40 feet of this building to make it much more open and accessible. This includes a complete modernization of the building's lobby, retail spaces, and the creation of amenity spaces for the tenants in this very large building. And we're deploying principles of city planning's activation of the street wall. One of the components, which is the reason why we're here for a special permit, is that we're pulling the lobby out to the 34th Street facade to try to activate the main entry into that building. And we've been working very closely, as I mentioned, with staff on advancing these plazas as close to the current standards that the resolution provides for. I'll now turn it over to Mike Zaborski to take you through those plans.
Thanks, Barry. Up here we have the existing site plan. As Barry had mentioned, it's a 57-story building that comes down. It's right mid-block. On the 2 sides, there's flanking 1-story high retail pavilions, and the 50,000 square feet of Bonus Plaza is basically scattered around the site. There's 6 major components of the North Plaza, the South Plaza. There's a small Southwest Plaza that's isolated between the 2 driveways. There's a through-block West Plaza that happens on the west side close to 8th Avenue, and there's a through-block East Plaza as well. The plazas have evolved over the last 5 decades to an even more unfriendly and defensive environment, as seen by the large physical impediments shown in green there that flank the sidewalks and essentially creating a remote raised spaces up above. The proposal that we have is essentially strengthening the street wall on 34th Street and essentially repurposing an ineffective plaza space that is partial plaza space on the North Plaza there and the North Arcade, which is directly north of the building entrance. This area is primarily used right now for circulation entering into the building, and there's no real public amenity in this area. The plaza reduction area on the site is going to be balanced out by removal of floor area within the building on the lower 3 floors of the building. This is the proposed site plan that we're showing here, so you can see the extended lobby space that reaches out toward 34th Street. And along the streets, you can see there's an increased access to the plaza areas. The stairs have been widened. There's a lowering of obstructions that flank the space to create visibility and also an increased barrier-free access to the Bonus Plaza spaces. Additionally, a major public amenity that we're proposing for the site is a northwest Penn Station entry with a new direct run escalators down to the concourse level and also a new elevator for access to the Penn Station area. Again, this is the existing photograph from the north on 34th Street. As Barry had mentioned, that low retail storefront and the really dark spaces there. And this is the proposed area. So the goal here is really to create a positive pedestrian environment with increased access, activity, and amenity on the bottom 2 floors. This 2-story storefront runs around the entire base of the building, architecturally solidifying the base. There's increased transparency for the new ground floor retail spaces that would be adjacent to the plazas, as well as increased visibility up to the plaza levels. Off to the right of the image is that new Penn Station entrance that comes directly off of the North Plaza and off of 34th Street, and the extended lobby spaces on the left-hand side of the image here. I'll hand it over to Signe.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Signe Nielsen, the landscape architect for the project. In order to preserve time for one other speaker, I'm going to move very quickly. But as been said, I think that the before and afters really demonstrate our attempt to create much better access, seasonal diversity, amenities for the public, and also to realize that in aggregate, there are a total of 1 acre. All these spaces aggregated equal 1 acre of space around the building. So a great deal of emphasis on movable seating, permanent seating, lowering the visibility, lowering the heights of the planters through tiering them, opening up access, making it much more bright and interesting and pleasant, and I think making a much better integration of sidewalk and public space combined with the architectural improvements that are being done. One of the challenges are the east and the west plazas. East Plaza is not elevated, however, it is extremely narrow. And we must preserve access for retail on both sides. But we want to open up the transparency from the sidewalk, create sort of a crescendo in the middle while simultaneously retaining retail access. The West Plaza is the largest of all. It also incorporates 2 plazas on 8th Avenue. It is elevated significantly, very hard to see your way through. I think that the removal of the impediments, the connectivity of a new linear element will make this really a far superior space. We are requesting, as part of this application, a nighttime closure for both the East and the West Plaza. The others will remain open. We are proposing to do this with simply a chain. There are others who will speak after me about the some of the challenges here, but primarily it is the intent of the owner for these spaces to be clean and welcoming to the public immediately in the morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Signe. So in total, we're spending about $25 million to redevelop all of these plazas. As Signe mentioned, we're asking for a nighttime closure on just 2 of the 8 plazas, the 2 that are not fronting the office lobby, which don't have that eyes-on that we're looking for. So the plazas on the north and south side of 34th and 33rd Street, which front the lobbies, will remain open 24 hours a day, where our security teams in the lobbies can continue to monitor them. We've had lots of challenges with these plazas over the year. Our maintenance and security teams are here to answer any of your questions. Obviously, this area around Penn Station is getting better, but the conditions of Penn Station with the homeless and the fact that Penn Station is open 24 hours will remain. There's a game of cat and mouse where the MTA and the Amtrak police push people out of Penn Station and they land on our plazas, which is what contributes to those problems. The big component we're doing here, which I just wanted to finish on, is the Penn Station entrance. We are creating a new entrance here at a cost of about $10 million. We're doing that by opening up an existing FedEx space and creating this new entrance here.
Nice note to end on.
Tried.
Commissioner Capelli.
Thank you. What are the hours that you're proposing to close at night, the 2 plazas?
Good morning. My name is Bob Flaheim. I'm with Crame 11. The West Plaza, which is the elevated plaza, we would like to close at 8 p.m. during the winter months, which start on November 1st through April 14th. And then the spring and summer, we would propose to close at 8 p.m. They will reopen.
I'm sorry, you said 8 p.m. for both?
I'm sorry, 10 p.m.
In the summer?
During the summer, 8 p.m. during the winter. They would reopen at 7 a.m. These are the hours that are permitted by the zoning resolution. On the East Plaza, which is a through-block plaza closer to 7th Avenue and at grade, we're proposing a closure between midnight and 5 a.m. because that has more of a circulation element, and we feel opening it up earlier and closing it later makes sense.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Dweck.
speaking of the closure times, that mid-block, through block, I know there's a lot of events not far away at Madison Square Garden. Would you be amenable to keeping it open later when events end late at night?
That's the specific reason why the East Plaza, which is basically right in front of one of the Madison Square Garden entrances, that we're proposing keeping it open later at night.
But you're saying you're going to close it at midnight?
At midnight. Most Knicks and Rangers games are done by 10.
I was thinking of concerts also that might end later, and sometimes people need access to go through mid-block.
We did not consider that. We'll take that under
Perhaps
consideration.
concert nights.
Other questions? Commissioner Burney.
I just want to commend the design. You know, so many of these earlier POPs were not well designed and really not good amenities for the public. So I think it's really great that you guys are investing in it like this. I should probably say, in the interest of full disclosure, that Signe Nielsen teaches in my program at Pratt, so maybe I'm supposed to be recused, but I don't know. But this kind of work that she's doing is the reason she's teaching in my program at Pratt, so I commend the design team for a good job.
Thank you.
It is appropriate that on a day when we had a presentation on modernizing the POPs requirements, that we see an example of how these 60s, 70s eras POPs can be repositioned. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Levin.
I guess I have a question for Vornado. We certainly understand, at least I certainly understand the need for the nighttime closure request at this present time, but one would hope that at some point in the future, the conditions have changed and the security concerns are not quite so extreme. I think it has been suggested in the course of this public review that there be some opportunity for a re-upping of the requested authorization so that it's not a permanent authorization. Would you be amenable to that?
We continue to believe the nighttime closures, which I said are limited to 2 of the 8 plazas, are appropriate. We acknowledge your comments and those of the community board, and we are currently working with the city council staff on trying to address those comments.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll close with 2 observations. One, just how good it is to see the incorporation of ADA accessibility. I also want to thank the applicant team for the serious look at trying to make the West Plaza ADA accessible on both ends. I appreciate that you seriously kick the tires on that. I do, though, want to emphasize that in large part, because of what you yourselves are doing, I see this area transforming rapidly. If one couples it with the work at Moynihan Station and the increased activity with Hudson Yards, it is very easy to see this neighborhood engaging in a turnaround. And so in addition to working with the City Council, the department will continue engaging because we do believe that a time limitation is appropriate because you yourselves are bringing such a welcome transformation to the neighborhood. Other questions? Thank you to the applicant team. We'll now turn to members of the public, beginning with Dan Biederman, who will be followed by Pravin Kumar.
Thank you very much. Speaking for the 34th Street Partnership, Penn Station is really a problem for Vornado, not of its own making. And Barry used the word homeless. Some of the people who are pushed out to the Vornado spaces are without homes, but most of them are really 2 different other problems, drug addicted and panhandlers. And this will get worse if marijuana is legalized. And there's a lot of drug use on the adjacent plazas. Heroin, the heroin users tend not to be violent, which is great, but K2 users, and then marijuana users somewhere in between. So I'm here to support Vornado's position on closing. Those of us who've worked on Midtown Order can tell you that, and we've tried to keep the lid on, but things get clearly worse at 10 o'clock. I love Chair Lago's comments and her optimism. I think that's going to persist for a while. So we're in favor of the closing at those hours. In fact, we probably would have urged them to close the East Plaza, which I have more comments about, a little earlier than midnight, because things really do deteriorate everywhere that I work, 10 or 11 o'clock. On the restroom request, I'm kind of known as a restroom maven. Bryant Park restrooms have been kind of a model for others. We've found, candidly, and I don't like to say this, I know this is a public meeting, but the truth is 34th Street is a more challenging place for public restrooms by far because of the drugs than Bryant Park. So I understand there was some push from the community boards for public restrooms. I wouldn't make Vornado do that in any of these public spaces. And then departing from these two issues, we made clear to Director Sue Chen that we're a little concerned about the East Plaza push by city planning, as we understand it, for more fixed seating. If Holly White were alive today, he would not approve the commission's push for more fixed seating on the East Plaza. What solved the conditions there over the last few years with us working very closely with Vornado, and they've been a terrific client, was more movable seating and more programming. And going back in the direction of fixed seating there, we think is a big mistake. So Director Sue Chen said, please make your comments at the public hearing, both at the community board and to you, and we are. With that, we're eager to work on more programming with Vornado, who's been a terrific client, and fit it into the requests that you have for the plazas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Levin.
Well, as long as you made the point, could you elaborate a little bit more on what would make for good seating in the East Plaza? What's the challenge with the fixed seating, and how is that addressed with, what's the right mix of seating and passageway? How does it relate to the retail? How do we create successful retail frontages? Right now, it's kind of the back door to retail space, doesn't seem super active. What's the magic recipe for enlivening the East Plaza?
If you want to get a sense of how I stand on that issue, go to Bryant Park and you'll see there are 4,800 movable seats and a couple of benches. We took them all out. The public can really be trusted to use them well and move them away from places where they would obstruct activity. So we would go for all movable seating there. And we know you have concerns elsewhere about developers who might not provide them or they might move. We think all of your general push for a guaranteed number of fixed seats in plazas is useful elsewhere, not such a good idea near Penn Station. So I would say all movable seating, a lot of programming. That's what brought the East Plaza from a disaster to better, far better, along the lines of what Chair Lago was suggesting may happen in the future.
Other questions? And we'll certainly be prepared, the department will be prepared to discuss this at the review session where we have post-hearing follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Pravin Kumar, followed by Bridget Cunningham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Pravin Kumar. I'm just going to read a statement. I'm the Director of Operations for Vornado's security outfit, GMSC. In my tenure with GMSC, I've served as a field manager responsible for oversight of night operations at the Penn Plaza District, overseeing security officers as well as detailed NYPD officers, inclusive of the East and the West Park. I live in New Jersey, and I've worked there for most of my life. Coming to New York City, it was somewhat of a culture shock. Many speak of Penn Plaza as the second coming of Times Square, iconic in its structures and amenities, and voluminous in its diversity. My daily introduction to the city speaks to a different narrative. Every morning when I get to work, I'm greeted by nearly 24 individuals asking for money, cigarettes, food, and more. This wouldn't normally faze me in a large city, except for the fact that the night before, the same individuals either spit on me or threw a bottle at me. The illustration provided to visitors to this great city upon entry is not one of safety or security, but rather dismal and disparaging in nature. Once I get to our office, I generally have to field complaints of many tenants who advise that they've been harassed or threatened by individuals lurking outside of our doors. Although most of their concerns are forwarded to local NCOs and NYPD, they look to us to provide them with safety without realizing that our aptness in our buildings is due to the fact that we operate in a closed environment, segregated from the dangers presented outside. Within the building, there are defined lines where trespassers can be managed. Plazas Plaza areas, egresses, and curbsides are a much different dynamic. The rest of my days are filled with the standard nuances of security. No, not access control or tenant issues. I'm instead speaking about issues outside of the building where we routinely witness assaults, intoxicated individuals, emotionally disturbed individuals, and drug deals. We've had many of our members who are just trying to do their jobs routinely threatened by these individuals. It's for these reasons that we support a nighttime closure of the East and West Park, which will help our staff do their jobs and without any concerns for their safety and security. Thank you.
Vice Chair Nichols.
I was just listening to your testimony. I'm curious, is there city-operated shelters in proximity to One Penn Plaza? And if so, have you been in communication with them?
We have homeless outreach that comes to the area regularly and routinely. A lot of folks are just not willing to accept the assistance and just stay located in that area, particularly East Park, West Park.
Other questions? Commissioner De La Hoz.
Well, I just want to maybe kind of, first, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the fact that you have a challenging job that every day probably presents the same thing. I think building maintenance in every building kind of has that kind of experience. But because of the interaction with the public aspect of what you do, it might be more challenging, and it seems like it is. But, you know, kind of following up on Commissioner Vice Chair Knuckles' question, could you maybe share a little bit about the ways that you and your teams have tried to get at the root, besides the design issues, which I think are very real? How have you tried to kind of get at some of the root cause issues through other ways over the years?
I mean, I can defer to one of my team members. That's right.
Yeah, we have a number of other members who will be testifying. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bridget Cunningham, who will be followed by Susan Matukalidis.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. My name's Bridget Cunningham. I'm the on-site property manager at One Penn Plaza. Had that role for 6 years now. I just wanted to talk to you about some of the maintenance issues that we see in the morning that we feel a nighttime closure would help us address and better serve the public and provide a safer and cleaner environment. Often, when my landscaper, who's the first person that we have in the building in the morning, starts between 4:30 and 5:30 a.m. in the plazas so that all of their work can be done quickly and efficiently right now outside of stopping from impeding people's access, they find drug paraphernalia, human waste, used condoms in the planters. It's a very unsanitary, unsafe environment. We do not see these things during the day when we're cleaning the plaza, when we have eyes on it. It's at night when these activities happen that make the environment unsafe for our occupants when they come in at 7 a.m. in the morning. We often in the morning find light fixtures ripped out of the planter faces because they're metal and there might be some value in that scrap. So a few years ago when we replaced 120 lights around the building, we ordered 50 extra because we knew that we would need them within the next year or so because they're ripped out so often. Sometimes when they're ripped out, it takes the whole fixture and you have to reset. So you can't really just find a piece to put over it. You have to reset the whole fixture. So those are the challenges we have. They're pretty consistent. They're consistent that it's always in the morning that we have these issues and that we're spending time cleaning up these plazas that we could be, using, cleaning up the sidewalk. We do have a large staff. I have 2 porters that are out in the street from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. that are policing all of the sidewalks, emptying all the trashes. So I think we're putting manpower at it. It's just the volume and characteristics of what happens at night make it really hard for us to catch up and be ready in the morning.
Thank you. Commissioner De La Hoz.
And, I think property management staff are often the unsung heroes of many building operations. So I'm sorry that your teams have to work under those conditions. I want maybe you're the appropriate person to ask the question about like over the years, how have you tried to address some of the root causes? It'd be helpful to have an understanding of how you got to a redesign.
So one of the things that we've done in the past few years is we've been working with and fostering a relationship with Breaking Ground. And they've come out early in the morning and done walks in our plazas with us. They know a lot of the people that are in our neighborhood. Breaking Ground finds them to be service resistant in the beginning and, comes back again and again and again and has had some success. Breaking Ground has the street level contract, and then BRC has the train station contract. So we do get some territorial issues there where you get BRC coming up into the plazas because they know that their clients are the ones that are now in the plaza because it's nice out. But we have worked with them for the past 2 to 3 years.
Commissioner Capelli.
I assume, given the nature of the problem that you're describing, that a chain going across is not going to be enough. Are you going to be stationing security guards there as well?
So yes, we would keep our overnight security patrols in place, and the chain link, we would hope would allow us to then have people removed from the plaza when they are, passing that barrier. So we have a great relationship with Midtown South, with their commanding officer. We work with them often. We work with the NCOs. So we're confident or hopeful that the chain will really help get us to where we need.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Susan Matukalidis, followed by Morgan Perlman.
Hi, my name is Susan Matakaitis. I'm with WSP. We've been a tenant in One Penn Plaza for a few decades now. We've been really involved with kind of some of the renovations that are going on. So we're familiar with the project. We're really excited about the changes that are proposed. As far as the nighttime closures for the plazas, I can tell you from my own personal experience, in the mornings, walking by, I know Bridget and her team does a great job of trying to clear those out, but even, around 7 a.m., 8 a.m., there are still people that could be lingering around, so I myself avoid them. The East Plaza, the lower plaza, even during the day, given how it's kind of set up and people can kind of huddle around and do things in private, I myself personally try to avoid that plaza during the day as well. As far as a nighttime closure, I think some things to consider. As far as the passageway through there, you really see people going through, and it's like the Long Island Railroad people or New Jersey Transit people. It's, during their rush hour, that's when they really use those plazas to get to where they're going. Even for events, during the summer hours, there's a little bit more nightlife going on in the West Plaza because there's, some restaurants there. But I would say 7 p.m., 8 p.m., people clear out of there. So even as you're coming out of, Madison Square Garden for events, if you need the subway, the entrances are right there. It's not like you have to cross through those plazas to get to where you need to go. And if they're taking Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, they just go right downstairs. So I think, closing those plazas off would kind of deter some of the folks that aren't aware of what might be going on there from really going through there. And then again, make it really a little bit easier for Bridget and us as tenants when we come in the morning, feeling like it's a little bit safer and cleaner for us to be able to go there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Questions? Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Morgan Perlman, who will be followed by Basha Gerhardt.
Good morning. My name is Morgan Perlman, and I'm here on behalf of the Association for a Better New York. The Association for a Better New York, otherwise known as ABNY, is a nonprofit dedicated to promoting connections between the public and private sectors of New York City. And we would like to express our support for the proposal to renovate and modernize the privately owned public spaces around, as well as the overall structural improvements to One Penn Plaza. The area surrounding Penn Station has been long debated, with several varying design ideas proposed, with major infrastructure improvement projects complicating the area. It is the gateway to New York City for so many people, yet 34th Street has been behind many other parts of the city when it comes to revitalization and improvement of the existing spaces and facilities. ABNY has long supported transformational improvements in the area, as well as all of the transit projects intended to protect existing infrastructure, as well as expand capacity to our regional and local transit systems. Vernato's proposal will make significant strides in improving the area and make it a better place for all New Yorkers. The proposed building improvements to the building will create a more welcoming pedestrian experience along 34th Street and provide this major thoroughfare with a more welcoming appearance. Additionally, the proposed improvements to over 1 acre of publicly accessible open space will help to create more inviting spaces for all users in the area. Improved lighting, seating, programming, and food options will encourage those who work or simply pass through this area to stop and make use of these spaces. This will be an improvement of the current situation, which makes many users avoid rather than enjoy these spaces due to negative activities that currently take place around the area, which have been aforementioned. We believe that Vornado has been thoughtful in their approach to creating a safer, more welcoming public space and believe that their concerns regarding the safety of the area during the nighttime areas represent the realities that deserve real consideration. The high traffic nature of the area, in addition to the high volume uses of Madison Square Garden and Penn Station, we feel that the privately owned public spaces warrant special consideration by the city and public safety experts that may require them to be treated substantially different than other POPs in areas of the city. The area around Penn Station should be welcoming for all New Yorkers, and it is for this reason that ABNY fully supports the proposal to change One Penn Plaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thanks. Our next speaker is Gasha Berhards, who will be followed by Jeff Brault.
Good morning, Chair Lago, Commissioners. Basha Gerhardt here on behalf of the Real Estate Board of New York in strong support of the application to reduce Bonus-Bowl Plaza square footage in exchange for design improvements and increased public amenities by Vornado. This proposal represents an opportunity to improve the public realm surrounding Penn Station to make it welcoming, safe, and usable to commuters, residents, and visitors alike to the west side of Midtown. The proposal before the City Planning Commission would mark a significant improvement in usability and institute a high level of design more aligned with today's standards that govern POPs. The current conditions in the existing public plaza and associated arcade spaces leave much to be desired. These spaces are disconnected from the public right-of-way and have several sightline impediments which lead to diminished safe use. The north, south, and southwest plazas are each less than 20% open, enclosed by deep raised planters that give the perception of private, not public space. The existing plazas have no ADA access, though they are above sidewalk level, a condition which would not be permitted today. Both the height of the plaza and arcade spaces are constrained by existing loading docks and the Penn Station concourse and retail below. The applicant is requesting a minimal reduction given the existing site constraints to enable ADA access and a superior engaged design. The design changes will increase points of access and focus on integration with the public realm. The addition of varied seating, including to spaces where there was none, such as social seating network of movable tables and chairs, will encourage activity in the POPs. The proposal seeks to appropriately use planting as a shade and design element versus as a barrier to physical entry. Other upgrades include lighting to meet today's illumination requirements and the provision of litter receptacles, retail kiosks, and upgraded plaza finishes. The realignment of plaza space and redesign of the ground floors of One Penn will form a more consistent street wall and also provide more visible and more direct access to Penn Station. The site constraints from sitting above parking and a transit hub, in addition to the current location and grade elevation of the plaza spaces, necessitates a reduction in plaza square footage to facilitate ADA access and a significant design overhaul. The proposed design changes will improve the public spaces surrounding Penn Plaza and will make the area safer and more functional to public enjoyment. Vornado has a stated commitment to a better Penn Station public realm. The thoughtful redesign and improved access to the station below satisfy the findings of the special permit, and the CPC is encouraged to approve the action being heard today. Thank you for your time and consideration of these points.
Thank you. Questions? Our next speaker is Jeff Brault, who will be followed by Isaiah Thompson.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Brault, and I'm the Director of External Affairs at the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, speaking in support of the project at One Penn Plaza. The neighborhood surrounding One Penn Plaza is a critical meeting point of Midtown East, Hudson Yards, and the Garment District, which are each undergoing major changes. If local businesses are to thrive, this area must keep up. By opening the base of the building and improving transparency, this proposal will support current retail businesses by increasing their visibility and curb appeal, and the added public plaza seating and dining areas will provide an improved dining environment, bolstering nearby neighborhood restaurants. The proposed initiative to create 850,000 square feet of creative office and retail space will provide many businesses with the modern commercial space necessary to thrive, and will also be attractive to tenants who expect modern-day amenities. Finally, this area is a critical meeting point for mass transit riders and attendees of major events at Madison Square Garden, and as such, it must be a safe, modern, and inviting space, which this proposal would provide. The roped-off corridors ensure safety, and the proposal to close the plaza overnight would increase the quality of life for those visiting the area, thereby discouraging unsafe behavior. This application demonstrates the time and effort taken to update One Penn Plaza while making it safe and attractive to modern commercial tenants, visitors, and consumers. And on behalf of the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce and our members, I urge you to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Our next speaker will be Isaiah Thompson.
Good morning. I'm Isaiah Thompson here on behalf of the New York Building Congress, which includes more than 550 constituent organizations in New York design, construction, and real estate industry. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. The Building Congress is in support of the proposed changes to the public spaces at One Penn Plaza, as well as the proposed facade improvements being made to the building. The redesign of these spaces will provide much-needed amenities within this central business district and allow for a more open and welcoming design. One Penn has approximately 1 acre of pop space, which could provide an amazing amenity to those who work or commute through this area. And however, these spaces are currently being underutilized and unwelcoming to the tens of thousands of people who pass through this area daily. The current building design is also unwelcoming, and by renovating the ground floor and removing the square footage to create a more welcoming entryway, Vornado has shown their commitment to creating new spaces that enhance the user experience. Redevelopment of the building of this size and significant structural constraints is challenging and an endeavor, but Vornado has taken a thoughtful and measured approach as how to address these challenges and will still be providing significant public benefits. These public benefits include the plazas that have been redesigned to improve the visibility and accessibility for New Yorkers. The Building Congress also thinks that the nighttime closures will allow for the proper maintenance and safety and security of these spaces, and we urge you to support Vornado's application and welcome these improvements to Penn Station.
Thank you. Questions? I'll note that we have 5 speakers who have signed up for questions only, and so I'll read out all their names in case any of the commissioners would want to ask questions. Gary Tarnoff, Judy Kessler, Melissa Howe, Anthony Favali, and Mike Doherty. Okay, our next speaker is Jessica Ortiz.
Good morning, Chair Lago and members of the Commission. My name is Jessica Ortiz. I work as a building service cleaner, and I have been a member of 32BJ for 6 years. I am here today as a commercial cleaner and on behalf of my union to express support for the proposed redevelopment of One Penn Plaza. This project stands to deliver important benefits for both workers and the surrounding neighborhood. Vornado is a responsible employer that is committed to providing good building service jobs throughout their portfolio, including at the Penn complex. Their proposal to improve this facility would create additional prevailing wage jobs in a part of New York City where there are many people in need of quality employment. This is an important investment in jobs that offer family-sustaining wages and that provide for secure retirement, full family health care, and other benefits that ordinary New Yorkers need. In addition to bringing new opportunities to Penn Station area, this project will improve conditions for current building service workers. My union, Local 32BJ, represents 90 cleaners and more than 30 security guards at Penn Plaza facility. Maintaining the site is an extremely challenging task, and Vornado's plan to update the open spaces and limit public access during nighttime hours will help ensure that the building service staff can do their job safely and effectively. From adding a new station entrance to beautifying the plaza areas, Vornado's plan will bring meaningful improvements to quality of life for the many people who use and work at this important fixture of New York City. This is an example of responsible development that will bring One Penn Plaza into the modern age and enrich the opportunities it already provides to working people. We respectfully request that you approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Our next speaker is, welcoming back, Lizette Chapato.
Good morning again, Commissioners. I'm here again to read a statement on behalf of Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer. I understand that the design of One Penn Plaza creates some public safety challenges, and in light of those challenges, I support the request for a nighttime closing. I understand that the Department of City Planning has determined that a trial period for the nighttime closing is within scope, and I encourage this commission to make it a requirement for the applicant. However, I, like the community board, am not so easily swayed by the notion that improvements to the plazas and a new access point, which, by the way, is not a new entrance, but a new access point, are the requisite public benefits. The plaza improvements themselves are a huge benefit to Vornado, as they will be enjoyed by the many office tenants and enhance the asset that is One Penn. So with that in mind, I have asked for the following items in my official recommendation. Number one, a new elevator to access Penn Station, which I understand Vornado has said is generally feasible, will be a welcome improvement to the station, and I will be pleased to see it included as a public benefit. Number two, adequate signage and extended hours for the new access point. The current entrance is difficult to find, and if the new access point were just as hard to locate, we could not in good conscience call it a public benefit. Vornado currently proposes to close the station entrance at 7 p.m. every night. And at a minimum, the hours of the station entrance should match the hours of operation of the West Plaza to ensure that it is not just used by the tenants of One Penn Plaza. Third, Vornado should provide a new public restroom within the Long Island Railroad concourse. The borough president was before you just 2 months ago touting the merits of the bathrooms at One Vanderbilt, and she believes that it's good public spaces that have to come with restrooms. And while I understand the public safety concerns, the proposed renovation of the Long Island Railroad concourse provides an opportunity to build a public restroom that will be safe. It's not impossible to ensure safety in these types of public spaces. And lastly, I believe that Vornado is particularly well positioned to provide affordable spaces for artists in its building. There's an extensive need for performance, rehearsal, and administrative spaces for theater and dance companies, as well as individual artist studios in New York City. The Alliance for Resident Theaters, or Art New York, a not-for-profit provider of such spaces, is located just 3 blocks to the north of One Penn Plaza, and it's served over 350 artists and hosted more than 370 performances in 2018. And despite being at capacity,
Ms. Chapato, if you could submit the letter so that we'll be able to read the balance of it.
Certainly.
Thank you. Now, those are the only speakers who have signed up, but if others are interested in being heard, they could come forward now.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Favalli. I'm the Vice President of Security for GMSC. I've been with Vornado for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was a 32-year veteran of the NYPD, where my last position, I headed the Vice Enforcement Division and the Human Trafficking Team. And it's in that period of time where, to address your question about the outreach and holistic approach to, if possible, if we can integrate that with our security measures, well, that's where I feel like I have the expertise and where I want to bring a thoughtful response to our plan. And to get that respite, to have the park closed in a defined period gives us the opportunity to cultivate those ideas. Right now, we are at a constant bubbling point. Our interaction with the the population there that we're concerned about is always confrontational. We have the methadone clinic, which is just a block away, the needle exchange programs. While these are well-intended to help people in need, it diverts back to our location being a place where they're going to use those needles and ingest that methadone, and then it's like a crash pad, and it presents a bird's view of the people coming out of Penn Plaza that they can now engage and approach. So it's very challenging. So I welcome any questions as far as what our plans are, and as a testimony by Praveen Kumar, I think between the lines of his testimony, you could see a very thoughtful, we're looking for that, someone else used the term thoughtful. That's what we want to accomplish here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Knuckles.
Well, I know you probably can't get too deeply into the weeds, but based on the plan reconfiguration of the POPs, of the space, what comes to mind in terms of some approaches you might take that would a better advantage?
The better advantage, and I think it was Commissioner Capelli who brought up the chain link fence. I know that sounds almost like ridiculous. Is that going to stop it? But right now, we have invisible lines. We have nothing. We have no verbiage in any of the signage. That it's quite gentle. It's very inviting, and we don't want to take away from that. But just having something that when we leverage the NYPD's paid detail, we get cops from all over the city that don't have the intimate knowledge of the location, and we can't guide them. Like, hey, if we have a defined line or a time, that we can engage in that action and use that action as an intervention also, that we can introduce. I'm more than happy to coordinate with social services. I still stay in contact. I still participate in the efforts of human trafficking with organizations like Sanctuary for Families, Safe Horizons. I'm very involved. But as mentioned, the tools, the closure is tremendous because it just allows us to reset. You get your teeth cleaned, you get your motor oil changed. These are the things you need to do, and I think in perpetuity you need to do it. And so, I mean, it sounds simplistic, but I think that's the starting point that we desperately need.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Berney.
I really appreciate your experience and expertise in all of this, and clearly you understand the sort of difficulties, but one would assume that with the closing of these plazas at night, those people don't evaporate, they go someplace else, and that throws the burden onto the precinct and other property owners. What is the solution?
Well, we're almost presenting a problem for, as you may be aware, Vornado owns a large footprint. We're involved in Farley. We know realistically, by closing the park, we're just going to push it to another part of our area. But it becomes more public and overt. Like these platforms and these nooks and crannies they're conducive to really just cultivating this behavior. Going back to simple things like the benches versus seating. Benches, they turn into beds. And the seating, at night, if we can have control of, if it's a mixture of both, we can remove the seats, put them back. We're finding some of our chairs 4 blocks away.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll once again ask if there's anyone else here who would like to be heard. Now would be the time.
Hi, Commissioners and Chair Lago. I'm Judy Kessler. I'm from Vornado. I'm part of the development team and have been working on One Penn Plaza for over 5 years. I just wanted to add a little bit more color to some of the statements you've been hearing. The Penn Station is more than twice as busy as Grand Central Station, and it has more lines coming into it than any other station. It's the busiest train station in all of North America. And that access to transportation, combined with all of the subway lines and the path that are in the district, make it an area where when you talk about what are the underlying causes of the drug trafficking and the issues that we have in the area, it's the combination of the easy access to 24/7 transportation combined with the methadone clinics, multiple clinics, and one of the only needle exchanges in Manhattan that exchanges over 1,000 needles a day. And so and you can see how people come into the plazas unsuspectingly and sit near people who are addicted or otherwise on drugs, and it's a very unpleasant experience. And so getting at the root causes, is something, we've tried by adding programming, spending a lot of money with Dan Biederman and his team to have positive influences outweigh the negative influences. And we're going to continue to work and work and work. But I just wanted to give you kind of that background, because we do want to make the plazas and the area as good as possible.
Questions? Commissioner Capelli.
Just curious, you had said that you've been working on this. Has this plan been in the works for 5 years?
So we've been working with, we came in to see Edith about this plan 3 years ago in terms of redoing the whole building, but we started talking about the plazas in February of 2014 and the problems that we had, and we started engaging with city planning about what we could do, what we could take out, and started working with Dan Biederman on making some changes in programming.
Thank you.
Other questions? I'll note that the previous two speakers signed up for questions only. If you do intend to testify, please don't know questions only.
Sorry, we didn't understand. I apologize.
Others who would want to be heard? Okay, then the public hearing is closed.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 8 and 9. Calendar number 8, CD 11, C180164, ZMK. Calendar number 9, N180165, ZRK. A public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 273 Avenue U rezoning.
We're going to have a presentation, a 10-minute presentation by an applicant team comprised of Walter Maffei and Giuseppe Ciaramintoro.
Very good. It's still morning, so good morning. My name is Walter Maffei. This is Giuseppe Ciaramintoro. Giuseppe happens to be the owner of the property located at 273 Avenue U. He's also a legacy to Joe's of Avenue U, which is a very famous landmark restaurant, which is known for its Sicilian specialties. The community at large has grown up with this restaurant, and they really want to keep it as part of the makeup of the location that we're looking to rezone. I'm trying to put I'm not really sure how this presentation works here.
It takes a minute.
Okay. In essence, the area is zoned as an R5A with a C2 overlay. There is an existing R6A zone with the C2-3 overlay across McDonald Avenue, directly across McDonald Avenue, and this would be simply jumping the street and extending that zone over. We're looking to change the zone from McDonald Avenue to Lake Street. Okay, so this is Cheddar Realty, and you see what the action request is. You have the location of the property in question. You'll notice that 273 is located on the corner of Lake and Avenue U. And that's what we're asking to have rezoned. It's an R6A. The owner has intentions of constructing a 3-story addition onto this building, which is currently a 1-story commercial building. You could see from the photograph that it's a small site, it's odd in shape, and you could see the type of occupancies that they have, primarily small mom and pop shops. So the intent here is to build on top of the existing commercial and to create 9 units of housing. The area itself has a need for housing. The reason why we're keeping it at 4 stories is primarily to keep it within to have a sense of community and also to keep it within the context of the adjacent area. There currently exists a 4-story building directly against the site that we have. So as you could see on the map, you'll notice that we're looking at that corner 100 feet in from Avenue U, between McDonald and Lake. And basically, it's a simple, I believe, change.
Thank you. Is that the end of the presentation?
That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Dweck.
Thank you. I noted that their building height is going to be 47 feet, and one of the borough president's concerns was that what assurances can you offer that the height would be limited?
Well, if we go any higher, we would probably have to exceed the 10-unit limitation for parking. And as you could tell, the site does not allow itself to provide any parking. So in essence, the owner himself does not want to create any complications on the site. He wants to make it as simple as possible. And frankly speaking, even if we wanted to provide parking, we wouldn't be able to put a curb cut within 40 feet of the corner, and that would severely limit any access to the building itself.
Thank you.
Other questions? Then thank you to the applicant team.
Thank you very much.
Now, those are the only folks who have signed up to speak. If anyone would want to be heard, now would be the time. And the public hearing is closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other business, Madam Secretary?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're out of here.
At 12.